Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, we're going to react to the cheapest American gun versus the cheapest British gun. I mean, in the UK, unless I think the only circumstance is if you're like a farmer and you use it to like get rid of, predators that, come for your like livestock. You have to keep it locked away. There's random inspections. It's really, really tightly regulated. I don't think any citizen can legally just own a firearm. Apart from that one example. In America, obviously, depending on what state you're in, you can, do what you like there. So it's going to be interesting just to find out, like how many firearms are there for sale in the UK. This is something completely new to me. How much do they even cost over here? They're probably really expensive.
America loves guns. However, when it comes to double guns, fine double guns, Britain has the monopoly, right? Well, maybe, because today I have an Ithaca box lock non-ejector and I have this John Wilkes box lock non-ejector. Both sit at similar values on the UK market, and today we're going to put them against each other and see which one we actually prefer.
Wow.
The caveat of today's challenge was to buy the...
Wow, look at the design on that. That is pretty. I'm not even a gun person, but that is a work of art.
Cheapest British double and the cheapest American double. Then head to a playground and pitch them against each other. Turns out there's a problem. American doubles have no value in the UK. So a better American gun was going to be way more affordable.
Having established this isn't particularly a fair fight and is in fact heavily weighted in favour of the Americans, let's start with a British gun. We've all seen British box locks before, and this John Wilkes is not much different. John Wilkes, 1 Lower James St Golden Square, London W1. It's a very beautiful box lock. Heavy acanthus scroll on the sides and up around the top there, but it is not a particularly fine gun. It's got some nice little touches like that long safety catch, that long ramped safety catch, and it's made to a fine standard. Had a little repair here or there, but this gun's over 100 years old, so we're going to forgive it that. The barrels are 28 inches long.
That thing's over 100 years old. Very well maintained.
Probably once upon a time they were Damascus, but they have been cut and sleeved into 28 inches. Nothing to hate here. It's just a good, cheap box lock. You could expect to buy something like this for £200 to £300. It's not killer. Where it's sleeved, it's going to have a little bit more barrel weight than we'd expect, so we should notice a bit of forward weight.
That is much cheaper than I thought it would be. Even though I've got no frame of reference, I would have thought it'd be more than that.
Let's go on and shoot a few of these clays and see how we get on. Tell you what, for a sleeved gun, this is pretty rapid. I don't think I'd like to shoot it before it was sleeved. At this point, let me tell you a little secret. The safety catch on this gun doesn't work, and in fact, I paid the grand total of £25 for it. That's $33 because it needs a little bit of work, and it's had a relatively hard life. If I was intelligent, I would have done the work to it. But this was a game of cheapest UK built gun versus cheapest USA built gun.
I can't believe you bought that for £25.
Which is a tough one because it doesn't necessarily reflect their true value, just the value that I paid for them. This Ithaca is, well, quite something by comparison. Problem with the Wilkes is, I may have got that Wilkes for a bargain, but honestly, I picked up this Ithaca for even less. I'm aware in America of what this is worth, and in the UK it's not worth a great deal, but it came to me with some issues, and so, well, cheapest American gun versus cheapest British gun. Off the bat, I have to say I prefer it. I mean, just to look at, it's a better looking gun. Maybe not the lines and the profile. I've never been a fan of that thin action with the bulbous tube sticking out the side. I don't think it looks quite as nicely proportioned as a British box lock, but the quality of that Damascus, it just looks stunning. Sorry, the aesthetics of that Damascus, probably a better word than quality. The look of the action, I could take or leave, but the two big things for me: semi-pistol grip, round knob, large, raised, scalloped filed.
This guy, you could tell he knows his stuff, man. He's got all the terminology, all the lingo.
Top rib. This gun should be easy to shoot. It's also an original 30-inch, and the balance, well, is a little bit more neutral, and so should move a little better than that. That said, I really didn't dislike the way that shot. Enough talking. Yeehaw, vive la revolution.
Good shot.
First impressions is it's definitely louder, and the recoil is definitely a little stiffer, which is interesting because they're both good tight actions. Perhaps the stock dimensions of this are a little less forgiving, but honestly they're both built for hobbits, so I don't entirely know why that would be. Yes, the barrel weight of the other should control muzzle flip, but it's got longer barrels. It shouldn't be bad, and overall weight is greater than that of the Wilks. Triggers are nice, definitely in need of a little bit of a clean up inside, touch spongy, and I mean, you can't hate it. My presumption perhaps is also that this has a lot of cast. I like a lot of cast, but this is...
How much would these two be in America? Like, I wonder why he said that there's no value for this in England. Is it because they're illegal for most people to own? Like, I imagine in America, these things would be worth a lot more probably, because they look so nice.
For a veritably American jaw, not a snipey Swedish one. Hey, I really like the way it shoots. I really like the way it shoots, but the fact that it recoils with 3/4 ounce cartridges is interesting. Or maybe just British people are not designed for recoil. We're too soft. Definitely, obviously not true, just before we see a revolution in the comments. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, but it does seem to kick a lot more than the Wilks. Look, in terms of shootability, this actually represents American guns very nicely. Low parallelish comb, shorter stock, wide flat rib used for aiming, rifle style shots occasionally, pistol grip heavy gun. Generally speaking, and this is generally speaking, American shotguns were designed to go and get food. There was no standing around in valleys with birds being pushed over you. In fact, the whole sport of shotgunning has been very different, or the outcome was been very different, other than they wanted a dead bird. This looks a lot more like a wildfowler's gun or a market hunter's gun from the UK. Market hunter's gun, that's an American term, isn't it? This looks much more like a wildfowling gun from the UK, with the grip and the top and the weight. And perhaps it would have been fairer to market it against a wildfowling.
I'm guessing Americans that own guns in the comment section. Is this something that you would own, or do you guys usually go for something more modern? Because most of the firearms I see, you know, in like videos of people practicing and stuff, or at the range, they're not really using these. They're using like pistols and things like that.
Style gun. However, this is a fairly
rifles.
common American spec, and that is a fairly common British spec. So what say you that we sit them down on a table and compare notes? Well, that wasn't a very fair competition, to be honest. I don't want to say that in this case the American gun won out massively, but I guess that's just because I got a good deal on it. I subsequently had a good look at these on the internet price-wise, and on Guns International they're looking anywhere from $1,000 up to $8,000 in good order.
Wow, 1,000 to 8,000. I mean, that's more like it. It looks expensive.
This is not in great condition, but it is in original-ish condition, up until about there with this spliced pad. I can't help but like it, and the same sort of weight, I can't help but like the John Wilkes. Again, for the actual money that this is worth, which is £150, realistically you could pick up something like this and go and have fun. It's an amazing value thing. Let's have a little look over them both back to front and do a little compare. Before we sum up, what we all kind of know is that they're both built for different markets. So difference is in stock are, well, vast, I suppose, but also that's going to be a matter of opinion.
Aesthetically, I'd have to go for the American one. I like the darker wood. Yeah. I mean, both of this part look quite nice to me, equally. I like this kind of shiny bit, but the darker wood.
Vast to those of us who care about the minutiae of detail. This is stocked English. It's actually a restock, so this isn't the original stock. It would be nice, perhaps, to have found a more original one, but cheapest means cheapest, not the one I want to shoot. You have a little bit of a diamond grip through the stock, but it is a straight hand stock, or stocked English as the Americans would say. This is not. This is actually stocked with a pistol grip, which is probably way more palatable. You have a single piece stock. This one has a pad on the back and a slight spacer. Again, these are probably modifications over time. This gun features no oval and interestingly has the serial number down on the wood, which is odd to me. If you look at the trigger guard, you can see where it has snapped, been re-welded, which is probably it broke when this stock needed replacing in the first place.
Wow.
The quality of workmanship is low, but I'm guessing this was done at a time when gunsmithing was just a trade and not so much of an art form as it is today, meaning it was cheaper just to get a new stock made and get this welded up than it was to, well, just replace the gun. If you look at this gun, however, you have no extended trigger guard, which is an interesting thing. You do have
that's the serial number, right?
Rarely see on English guns. We are more into ovals. The Americans are way more into shields. I actually kind of prefer this, sadly for me. The wood is different grades. We're not going to talk about wood grade. This not being original, this being original. This is a Ithaca Crass Grade 4. It's a lovely gun. This, John Wilkes would have had a nicer piece of wood than this on it originally, but it doesn't now, so that's sad. The stock dimensions are different as well. This gun is flatter with a lot more cast, meaning it's been bent off the face a lot more. That's because they're designed to be shot in a different way. Most American birds, when you shoot them, are below the horizon or at 90 degrees or below, maybe a touch above, but we're not going to get into semantics. Whereas in England, the sport when this was done was to be shooting birds flying higher in the sky, or at least above the horizon, meaning the stock is set up a little higher.
It's just so interesting, all of the details and things that have been taken into consideration when designing these two things. Like, I'm just a layman. I don't know anything about guns. I would have just thought they were designed differently because different companies designed them. I wouldn't have thought it was because of the birds they were going after.
It is a little longer, but again, that's completely by the by. It's just a different style of shooting designed for different things. Moving into the action, the design is slightly different. This is a classic Birmingham box lock, and this is the Ithaca style action. We could take it apart and show you the internals, but we're not going to today. If you'd like to see that, let me know, and we could probably rip this Ithaca apart and have a look inside. The safety catches are different, but their purpose remains the same. I am deeply in love with this safety catch. I think it is so cool. Like, genuinely one of my favourite safety catches. Just, I love how it's got the little fins round it. It's just, there's a lot going on. I like it. I do like it. Whereas this, you have a different style of safety catch. It's long, it's sluggish. It's just patent designs. It's not like one is the most British and one is the most Americans. I think that both countries appreciate gun safety and safety catches. This is Matt's safety catch.
The American one is, reality, it looks nicer.
The Ithaca has a large trigger guard. It's actually not as deep as this one, with a big gap between the triggers, again, presumably because this gun was used in a more practical hunting environment. It was said on a podcast I was listening to recently that when America beat us out of their country, the king's land became their land and they went and hunted it, whereas in England it's still the king's land. And so the more common man still appreciates to hunt for food.
Why are there two trigger-looking things here? Like, can someone explain that in very basic terms in the comments section, please?
Where in England, hunting is still more of a sport, strangely, or was, certainly at this period in time. Whether that's true or not, I appreciated the sentiment. This gun stock checkering is kind of important. Yes, this isn't original, but the forend is original, so you get a little taste of what this would have been like once upon a time. Flat point, 22 lines per inch. This is something you do not see in England, this elaborate checkering. We preferred the tight lines of a classic checkering, and so that's what you'll see on pretty much every English gun. When it comes to the American gun, you have insanely elaborate checkering with fleur-de-lis and curved borders, and actually this is off the chain in terms of a quality workmanship. It's worn, man. But hey, you'd be worn if you'd been robbed for 100 years, wouldn't you? The same goes for the forend. You have elaborate lines coming through the middle, curved edges. It's a real display of art, whereas in England, strangely, it's a very practical thing, checkering. It has to be perfect, but it's a little bit like fine rose and scroll, isn't it? It's the pursuit of perfection.
Someone took like a hammer and a chisel to this. Or how else would they have... Yeah, that's what they had to do. They carved it in. That must have taken ages, especially back in the day. Ooh.
Of a simple thing. Whereas, I mean, this still has to be perfect, but you could get away with more sins, maybe? I don't know. You tell me. The checkering is done. Let's move on. The engraving is different. Again, engraving-wise, this gun doesn't deserve to be in this fight. It is a fine piece of engraving. That weave on the border, the account, the scroll, the game scenes, all of it is actually really beautifully done. It's very un-English. You wouldn't potentially see scenes like this on English guns of the era. You may see game scenes, but you'll rarely see this elaborate acanthus, and you'll rarely see, well, you can see borders like this, but it's definitely a little louder than a British gun would be. I really like this piece at the front here as well. It's not done to the best standard, that front end, but I just like the way that it curves down. You get this little fan leading into the raised side panel there.
It's a work of art.
The whole action design of the Ithaca is not in contravention with a British designed gun either. With a British gun you would have greeners have this kind of look to them, but most follow this classic box lock shape. This seems to be, looking at my Parker and now at this Ithaca, how the American guns seem to look a little more. It's more of the look, that long, super long action, usually with a curved piece and raised side by side flats of the action. Side plates. They call it half side plate on an over and under, so let's call it that. Again, it's absolutely nothing weird, it's just a slight difference. Again, a slight difference is the classic box lock versus the American gun. Most of the American guns I have seen have a slightly thinner bar to the action and slightly ergo wider fences, whereas British guns have wider bar of the action.
It's such a shame that the gun range that we went to in Vegas wouldn't let us have a go because we hadn't had any training or anything, and they didn't have enough staff. I really want to just feel what it's like to, you know, fire a gun, just to feel that sensation, you know.
Shallower fences. The forend, I mean, they're both foreends, aren't they? There's not much to write home about there. The detachment style is different. This is a pull to release forend, meaning it's done on the pressure of this spring, whereas this is a push button forend. So it pushes off with a button. You can see the inside of this was black, the inside of this was case color hardened. I would have said they're probably aesthetic differences more than anything else. Oh yeah, there's something about that snap forend.
Yeah, quite satisfying.
Sound good. And there you go. The barrels are different too. Not that there's much of a difference here. What
Quite
was interesting
similar.
is this is a 30-inch Damascus gun, and being grade 4 Ithaca crash Damascus, you have this beautiful little stars.
Wow.
Or flowers.
How did they even get that?
In the Damascus. It is a stunning piece.
Is that painted or?
However, American Damascus is famed for not being perfect, but I don't care. It looks good and it didn't blow me up, so let's say that. This, once upon a time, probably would have been Damascus, but now it has been sleeved. Again, price point, right? It's the cheapest we could find. I did almost buy myself a semi-automatic for the American gun in this argument, but I didn't want to. It should be double gun to double gun, right? And if it was semi to semi, I don't think there was ever a British-built semi-automatic, so we'd lose that fight pretty quick. The main differences, really, as we've said, our hunting styles and hunting culture are supremely different. The British side-by-side is generally designed for driven shooting. That is the birthplace of these guns. That is the principle of pretty much all designs of a British side-by-side are based around that, whether they're used for that or not. Yes, there are wildfowling guns that we have here that will be a lot more like this, and live pigeon guns that will be somewhat like this. And of course, more Magnum-y guns and modern clay shooting side-by-sides, but the mainstay of British guns looks and feels like this. A driven
That's the standard.
Side. And the mainstay of American side-by-sides that I have seen are a little more like this. A bit heavier, a bit more utilitarian. The pistol grip, the bigger trigger holes, like it is a different...
What is a pistol
grip? The raised rib so that you could
so many questions.
Using that rib as a sighting plane. Because when something's going away, well... That's why trap guns have ribs, right? It's a lot easier to sort of line something up. Also, the versatility of an American gun. In America, you can shoot deer with a shotgun. You can't do that in England. You could back in the day, but it wasn't sort of the mainstay, was it? I hate to give it to the Americans, but today, you guys have won. Your guns...
Both of those guns, I have to say, gorgeous. I love that old aesthetic. You know, it just reminds me of, you know, bygone era. The wood, the length, the design on the wood, the Damascus, beautiful, beautiful. I'm surprised, £25 he said he paid for the British gun. Unbelievable. Like, for $25, you probably couldn't buy that in America, right? Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.